Hello, my name is Neil Bennett, Technical Support Advisor. Today we'll be talking about Change Auditor 6.6 and how to create a search to filter Active Directory events. Creating a search to filter Active Directory events will be broken down into three subtopics: creating a new search, reviewing the tabs of the search properties, and demonstrate a typical Change Auditor for Active Directory search. The first topic we'll discuss is how to create a new search. Here we are in the Change Auditor Client Overview tab. To create a search, we'll need to go to the Searches tab. Within the Searches tab, there are two main locations you can save the search: within the Shared folder or within the Private folder. The Shared folder allows your search to be edited by any other administrator. In the Private folder, the search can only be accessed by the current logged-in user. For the purposes of this example, we will create the search within the Shared folder. Just right-click the folder and then select New, and then New Search. The search will then appear on the right within the folder. On the bottom frame of the client, we can see the different tabs which represent the search properties. This brings us to our next topic, reviewing the tabs of the search properties. We return to the search that we created in the Change Auditor client. Here you can define the search name, search description, and search limit. The search limit is how many results will be returned maximum when the search is run. Typically it's set at 50,000. It can be increased, or the search limit can be removed completely. Next we'll go to the Who tab. The Who helps you specify who's the person that made the change. So if you're looking for actions that were performed by a certain person, this is the tab that you want to use. You can either add the person from the Active Directory selector or by using a wildcard. When you click the Add button, a selector appears. You can actually specify which account you want to put as the Who. For example, in this case, if I wanted to specify all the changes made by the administrator account, I can add it to my Who tab. Next we'll go to the What tab. The What tab lets you define what object was changed and what event was captured. When you click the drop-down arrow next to the Add button, you'll have several options to define the What. If you select Subsystem Active Directory, here you can select the Active Directory object that was changed. If I set my scope to this object, I can then select an individual account from the list below. In this case, I'll select the administrator account. Once the account is located, you highlight the account, select it, and then click the Add button to actually add it to the list. Multiple objects can be added to the list, or you can set the scope to either this object to child objects only, or this object to all child objects. This is useful if you want to search for changes made to all objects that are within an OU, for example, domain controllers. If we return to the drop-down arrow next to the Add button, we can then select the Event class. The Event class lets you define what event you want to search for. This contains a complete list of all the events available in Change Auditor. The list can be filtered by using the top row of each column. For example, if I wanted to search only the events that have deleted in the name, I can type in the word deleted. We'll then cancel and go back to the drop-down arrow next to the Add button. Next, we can select the Object class. An object class is essentially the type of object that you want to report on. This is rarely used. For example, you can select all user class objects to be returned in your search. Returning to the drop-down next to the Add button, you can define the severity of the events that you want returned in the search. Each event has a predefined severity, which can be changed if you like. Severity is defined by low, medium, and high. You'll select the drop-down arrow next to the Add button again, and then select Results. Results menu lets you filter events by successful, protected, or failed. Successful events are events that completed successfully. Failed events are events that were attempted but failed. Protected events are events that failed when they are attempted on protected objects. Next we'll talk about the Where tab. The Where tab defines where the event occurred, or you can think of it as what server the event was recorded on. Similar to the Who tab, when you click the Add button, it will bring up an Active Directory selector. Here you can select which computer object you want to define as the Where. For example, we can expand domain controllers and select what domain controller an event was recorded on. Next we'll select the When tab. The When tab defines the time and date range for when the events have occurred. You have three main options for setting the when. You can set it to this day, week, or month. You can select last, minute up to a year, or you can select the date range and define the to and the from. You can define the from and the to by clicking the drop down and selecting from the calendar. For example, I can select the 1st of December 2014 as my from, and then set the to as December 31st, 2014. Next we'll click the Origin tab. The origin is the workstation for the user that performed the action. The origin isn't applicable if the action is performed directly on the domain controller. When you click on the Add button, you can define the origin using wildcards, the wildcard operator being the star. In this module, we will not review Alert, Report, and Layout tabs, as they do not involve filtering events. This brings us to our final topic, demonstrate a typical change auditor for Active Directory search. We return to the Info tab of the search properties of our search that we created, and we'll first define a relevant name for the search. In this example, we want to see all the users that were added to the domain admins group in the last month. Since we want to know what users were added to the domain admins group, we don't need to define a who, as the who would restrict events only to the users who have actually performed the events. So instead we'll go to the What tab. In the What tab, we'll then select the drop down next to the Add button, which will allow us to select Subsystem and then Active Directory. Once the selector is open, we'll then select this object as the scope, because there's only one object that we want the events returned for, and that's the domain admins group. We'll then browse to the domain admins group. Once we locate it, we'll highlight it and click the Add button to add it to the list below. You could add multiple objects to the list if you wanted to, but in this case it's not required. We then click OK to exit the selector. If we left the What defined as is, we'd return all events that occurred to the domain admins group object. Since we only want a particular event, we'll select the drop down next to the Add button and then select Event Class. The event we're looking for in this example is Member Added to Group, so we'll filter the events based on the word member. Once we locate the event in the list, we'll highlight it. Once we highlight the event, we can see that you can filter the events based on the group type. It's not really applicable in this case, so we'll click the Add button at the bottom. When you click the Add button, you get two options: add the event, or add all the events in the facility. In this case, you'd add all custom group monitoring events. That's not really what we want, so we'll add the event only. We'll then click OK. We now have our What defined for our search. The Where tab is not going to be applicable in this search, since we want events returned from any domain controller. Therefore, we'll move on to the When tab. We can actually define the timeline for which events will be returned. Since we want events from the last month, we'll check off the last box, and then select Months from the drop-down list. The number of months could be increased if you wanted. Which brings us to the Origin tab. Since we want all the changes made to the domain admins group, regardless of what workstation was performed on, we'll not set an origin. The search is defined and now ready to save. Once we click the Save button, we'll see the name updated in the search list. Now that the search is saved, we'll go ahead and click the Run button, and we'll see what search results are returned. The search results will appear on its own tab in the client. How quickly Change Auditor returns events depends on the number of events returned and how large the Change Auditor database is. If we look at the event that was returned, we can see the administrator user added one user to the domain administrator group. In this case, the user's name was CS Operator. The What property shows the user that was added to the domain administrators group as a direct member. When shows the time and date that the event occurred. Origin shows the domain controller the event occurred on, because it must have been made on the domain controller directly. The From and To show us that the user was not a member of the domain admin groups previously, but now they are a member. This concludes our tutorial, Change Auditors, and how to create a search to filter Active Directory events.